You ever notice how the people closest to your heart are also the ones who can break it the most? It's strange, isn't it? We spend our lives searching for connection, for that one person who makes us feel seen, understood, alive. And when we finally find them, that's when we open ourselves completely. But sometimes that same openness, that same love, becomes the doorway to pain. Today I want to talk about why that happens. Not to dwell in the hurt, but to understand it. Because when we understand our pain, we can transform it. We can grow from it. We can forgive, not just them, but ourselves. So let's talk about it. 5 truths about love, pain, and the way they dance together. You know, it's strange how love, this thing we chase, this force that fills us and breaks us, can be both the most beautiful and the most terrifying thing we'll ever experience. We grow up hearing that love is what makes life worth living. Movies, songs, books, they all tell us that love is the destination. But what they don't tell you is that love is also the cliff's edge. It's standing at the border between safety and surrender, between control and chaos. And the deeper you love, the deeper you risk being shattered. When you love someone deeply, you give them something no one else has: access. Access to the parts of you that the rest of the world never sees. You hand them a kind of emotional key, one that unlocks your joy, your fears, your secrets, your hopes. You invite them inside into the most sacred space, your heart. And that's not something small, that's everything. Because once they're in, they can touch the most fragile parts of you, the ones you've spent years building walls around. See, vulnerability isn't weakness, it's trust. It's the act of saying, I'm willing to be seen, fully, without the armor. And that's brave, that's love. But here's the thing. When you hand someone that much of yourself, they also hold the power to hurt you in ways no one else can. That's the paradox of love. The same person who brings you peace can also bring you pain. The same voice that soothes you can one day go silent and leave you questioning everything. It's like standing in sunlight. The brighter it shines, the darker the shadow it casts. And when love is real, when it's deep, that shadow can feel endless when it's gone. But maybe that's the point. Maybe it's not about avoiding the pain. Maybe it's about realizing that pain is the echo of how deeply we allowed ourselves to feel. There's this quote that says, love is giving someone the power to destroy you and trusting that they won't. And that trust, that's the foundation of every connection that truly matters. It's not blind faith, it's a choice. Every day you choose to believe that this person will treat your heart with care. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But love doesn't come with guarantees, it never has. It's risk, pure and simple. And yet we keep choosing it because somewhere deep down, we know it's worth it. Think about it. When we hold back, when we love cautiously, when we protect ourselves too much, we might avoid getting hurt, but we also miss out on the full experience of being alive. You can't feel the depth of joy without opening yourself to the depth of sorrow. They exist together, 2 sides of the same coin. The depth of love creates the depth of vulnerability, and that's what makes it real. When someone becomes your person, they don't just know your favorite song or your coffee order, they know your moods. They can tell when something's wrong even when you say I'm fine. They see you at your worst, the moments you're not proud of, the moments you're scared, messy, insecure. And when they accept you anyway, that's a kind of peace that nothing else can replace. But when that connection breaks, when trust is lost, it doesn't just hurt, it shakes your sense of self, because they weren't just part of your world, they were your world. And the thing about deep love is that it creates deep roots. So when it ends, it's not like cutting a flower, it's like pulling out a tree. You lose parts of yourself you didn't even realize had grown around them. You grieve not just the person, but the version of you that existed with them. And that's what makes the pain so profound, because love rewires us, it changes us, it teaches us to see beauty differently, to feel time differently, to believe differently. But still, even after heartbreak, after disappointment, after betrayal, we crave it again. Why? Because as human beings, we're built for connection. Our hearts are wired to give and receive love, no matter how many times we've been broken. And the reason we hurt so deeply when we love deeply is because it means something real happened, something alive, something worth missing. There's a kind of sacredness in that. To be capable of feeling that much means you've lived, you've cared, you've risked. And isn't that what being human is about? To feel, to fall, to rise again. Every scar on the heart tells a story, not of weakness but of courage. Because every time you love, you're saying, I'm willing to risk myself for something greater than fear. Sometimes we try to protect ourselves from vulnerability by pretending we don't care, by building walls so high that no one can climb them. But the truth is, those walls keep love out, and they keep us in. Vulnerability is not the enemy. It's the birthplace of connection. Without it, love is just performance, polite, safe, distant. With it, love becomes raw, unpredictable, real. I once knew someone who said, I'd rather have a heart that's bruised from loving than one that's untouched from fear. That stuck with me, because that's the essence of life. We weren't meant to go through it unscathed. We were meant to feel it fully, to love so hard that it breaks us open, and in that breaking, we discover more of who we are. When you allow yourself to love deeply, you allow yourself to be transformed. You learn empathy, patience, forgiveness. You learn that not everything will last, and that's okay. Some people come into our lives not to stay forever, but to show us something about love, about loss, about ourselves. And sometimes their leaving hurts, not because they were perfect, but because they mattered. So, if you've been hurt by someone you love deeply, don't let that pain convince you that love was a mistake. The pain is proof that you gave something real, that you were brave enough to show up with your heart wide open. Most people go through life never doing that. Most people never risk that kind of honesty. But you did. And that means something. You don't heal by closing off. You heal by staying open. By remembering that vulnerability isn't what destroyed you. It's what made you capable of love in the first place. The heart that breaks is the same heart that heals. And when it does, it becomes softer, not weaker, more compassionate, not colder. Because once you've known love that deep, you can't unlearn it. You carry it with you, even after it's gone. So maybe the truth is this: the depth of love will always create the depth of vulnerability. And yes, that means it can hurt. It means you'll cry, you'll ache, you'll question. But it also means you've touched something real. You've lived in color. You've seen what it means to give and receive love, completely, recklessly, beautifully. And in the end, that's what makes life worth it. Not the moments we play it safe, but the moments we let our hearts be seen, no matter the risk. Because love, even when it breaks you, is still the most extraordinary thing we'll ever do. You ever notice how most of the pain we feel in love doesn't come from what is, but from what we thought it should be? Expectations. They're quiet, invisible even, but they're powerful. They sit beneath the surface of every relationship, shaping how we love, how we react, how we hurt. We don't always see them being built. Sometimes they start as simple hopes, tiny blueprints of how we imagine things will go. But over time, those blueprints become rules, unspoken, unagreed upon. And when reality doesn't follow them, pain walks in like it owns the place. When we fall in love, we don't just fall for the person. We fall for the story we create around them. We picture how they'll make us feel, how they'll stay, how they'll love us back. We imagine moments that haven't even happened yet. That's what expectation is. It's love's shadow. It grows quietly beside our desire. And the deeper we care, the larger that shadow gets. Until one day we realize we've built a version of someone that doesn't fully exist. Not because they lied, but because we wanted to believe. We expect them to understand us without words, to always know what we need, to never disappoint, never leave, never change. We expect consistency in a world that's made of change. And when they can't meet those expectations because they're human, it hurts. But the hurt isn't always about them. It's about the gap between what we imagined and what is real. Think about it. How many times have you said to yourself, I just thought they'd care more, or I thought we'd be together forever, or I thought they'd understand me? It's those sentences, the I thought ones, that hold the weight of our heartbreak. Because love didn't fail us. Reality just didn't match the version of it we created in our heads. It's not wrong to hope. Hope keeps us alive. It's beautiful to dream about love and connection. But when hope turns into demand, when it says you must be this way, that's when pain begins. Expectations are the silent architects of pain because they build emotional structures no one else agreed to live in. We design entire relationships in our minds, decorate them with ideals, and forget that the person in front of us might not fit into that space we built. They're not a project, they're a person. Sometimes we don't even realize how heavy our expectations are until they start breaking under their own weight. We say we want love to be unconditional, but deep down, we attach conditions to it all the time. We want them to be kind, attentive, loyal, strong, funny, patient, all at once. We expect them to fill every crack in our soul, to heal wounds they didn't cause. But that's not love. That's dependency dressed as destiny. Real love is allowing someone to be who they are, not who we need them to be. It's learning to accept the mess, the confusion, the flaws. It's understanding that people will fail us, not because they want to, but because they're human. We will fail them too. That's part of it. But when we build our happiness around the idea of perfection, even the smallest imperfection feels like betrayal. We live in a world that romanticizes the ideal. Perfect love stories, perfect endings, perfect people. But real life isn't a movie. There's no soundtrack swelling at the right time. No perfect line that fixes everything. There are misunderstandings, moments of silence, nights when love feels like work. And yet those moments, the imperfect ones, are where the real connection lives, where the growth happens, where understanding begins. There's this saying, expectations are premeditated resentments, and it's true. The moment we expect something specific from someone, we set the stage for disappointment. Because no one else lives inside our mind, they can't read the script we've written, and sometimes they don't even know there is a script. Yet when they improvise, when they act outside the lines, we feel hurt, as if they've betrayed us. But how could they betray a plan they never saw? A lot of people confuse expectations with standards. They're not the same thing. Standards are boundaries, they're about self-respect. Expectations are assumptions, they're about control. Standards protect your peace. Expectations demand someone else create it for you. One comes from love for yourself, the other comes from fear of being let down. And fear is always behind expectation. Fear that we're not enough. Fear that love won't stay. Fear that if we don't control it, it'll disappear. So we cling to the idea of how things should be instead of allowing them to unfold as they are. But love can't breathe under control. It suffocates there. It needs space. Space to grow, to change, to become something new. Think about how often you've hurt someone without meaning to, just because you didn't meet their expectations. Maybe you didn't text enough. Maybe you weren't affectionate in the way they wanted. Maybe you didn't love them the way they expected to be loved. It's never about right or wrong, it's about difference. And when we love with expectations instead of understanding, we turn difference into disappointment. Some of the greatest heartbreaks in life don't come from betrayal or loss. They come from misaligned expectations. Two good people can break each other's hearts simply because they're loving from different maps. And that's what expectations do. They create invisible maps that no one else can read. Letting go of expectations doesn't mean giving up on love. It means freeing it. It means allowing love to be what it is, not what we think it should be. It means saying, I see you as you are, and that's enough. That kind of love is rare, but it's real. It's the kind that lasts, because it's not based on fantasy, it's based on presence. There's a quiet power in releasing expectation. When you stop demanding that someone fulfill a version of your happiness, you start to find peace in what is. You begin to appreciate the little things, a small gesture, a kind word, a moment of laughter. You start to see love not as a performance, but as a practice, something that requires patience, grace, and forgiveness. And maybe that's what love is supposed to teach us, not how to control someone, but how to accept them, not how to avoid pain, but how to understand it. Because the truth is, the more we expect others to carry our happiness, the more we suffer. Happiness isn't built on what others do for us. It's built on how we show up, how we love, how we let go. If you can learn to replace expectation with appreciation, everything changes. You start to notice how much beauty there already is, how much love you already have, how much peace comes from simply letting people be who they are. That's when connection becomes real. When you stop trying to sculpt someone into your idea of perfect and start loving them for the shape they already are. And maybe that's the quiet lesson life keeps whispering to us, that peace isn't found in getting what we expect. It's found in learning to love without needing the world to match the picture in our mind. Because once you stop trying to force life to look a certain way, it starts to feel beautiful exactly as it is. You ever notice how the people closest to us, the ones we love the most, are often the ones who seem to trigger our deepest pain? It's not because they're cruel or because they want to hurt us. Most of the time, it's because they stand close enough to touch the places we've been hiding, the places we've buried, the wounds we thought we'd outgrown. And suddenly, something they say, something they do, opens a door inside us that we didn't even realize was still locked. That's the strange and beautiful thing about love. It reveals us. It shows us who we really are. When we let someone get close, we're not just sharing laughter, dreams, or comfort. We're sharing history, all of it. The beautiful parts and the broken parts. The moments that shaped us and the ones that shattered us. And sometimes, without even meaning to, we end up making the people we love carry the weight of what someone else did to us long ago. We project our wounds. We hand over our old pain and wrap it in the language of the present. We see betrayal where there is none. We hear rejection in silence. We mistake care for control or distance for indifference. We're not reacting to what's happening now. We're reacting to what happened then. Maybe you've felt it. Maybe someone didn't text back and suddenly it wasn't just about a message. It was about every time you felt forgotten. Maybe your partner raised their voice and suddenly it wasn't just about a disagreement. It was about the time you felt small, voiceless, unseen. That's how the past sneaks into the present. That's how old wounds speak through new relationships. And the truth is, we don't mean to do it. We don't set out to project our pain. It just happens. Because healing isn't about erasing the past. It's about recognizing when the past is steering the present. It's about noticing when your reaction doesn't match the moment. That pause, that second of awareness, that's where growth begins. We all carry emotional fingerprints from the lives we've lived. The things our parents said, the way our first love ended, the moments we felt unworthy, abandoned, unseen, all of it leaves an imprint. And those imprints don't disappear just because we find new people. They come with us. They shape the way we interpret love. They shape what we think safety looks like. They shape what we believe we deserve. Imagine your heart as a house. Every person who's ever mattered has left something inside. A painting, a crack, a shadow. When someone new walks in, they don't just see you. They see the whole gallery of your past, even if you try to hide it behind fresh paint. And sometimes they'll touch a wall that still hurts, and you'll flinch, not because of them, but because of what the wall remembers. It takes courage to admit that. It takes humility to say, I'm not angry because of what you did. I'm angry because what you did reminded me of something I never healed from. That kind of honesty is rare, but it's what love needs to survive, because projection doesn't just hurt the other person. It keeps us trapped. It keeps us reliving the same story under different names, wondering why the same pain keeps finding us. There's a moment in every deep relationship where things get real, where the surface level harmony starts to fade and old patterns start to show. That's the moment when love either breaks or deepens. Because love isn't proven in the easy days, it's proven in how we hold each other when the ghosts show up. And they will show up. The ghosts of your childhood, the memory of that person who left, the fear of being too much or not enough. They come quietly, dressed as arguments, misunderstandings, silence. And the person who loves you might not even understand what's happening. They might think it's about them, that they did something wrong. But it's not about blame. It's about awareness. The beautiful part is love can become the mirror that helps you see your wounds clearly for the first time. The way someone loves you or fails to can bring to light everything inside you that's still aching to be healed. That's not punishment. That's invitation. It's life saying, here, look, this is where it still hurts. This is what still needs your attention. And when you recognize that, when you stop running from it, healing begins. You start to see your reactions for what they are. Old defenses trying to protect you from something that's no longer happening. You start to realize that the person in front of you isn't the enemy. They're just close enough to touch the bruise. And instead of pushing them away, you can say, this is why I reacted that way. This is what that moment brought up for me. That kind of communication, that kind of self-awareness changes everything. It transforms relationships from places of blame into places of growth. It turns arguments into understanding. It turns fear into intimacy. Because the truth is, love doesn't heal you by avoiding pain. It heals you by showing you where the pain still lives. But to get there, you have to stop pretending you're unscarred. You have to stop pretending that the past didn't shape you. We live in a culture that glorifies moving on, that treats vulnerability like weakness, but there's nothing weak about acknowledging your pain. It takes strength to sit with it, to study it, to understand how it echoes in your life. Sometimes healing means saying, I'm sorry, not just to others, but to yourself. I'm sorry for holding you to someone else's mistakes. I'm sorry for expecting you to fix what you didn't break. I'm sorry for making you carry pain that wasn't yours. That's how we stop the cycle. That's how we start loving people for who they are, not for what we hope they'll heal in us. The people closest to us aren't meant to save us. They're meant to walk beside us as we save ourselves. They're not responsible for our wounds, but they can help us see them more clearly. And when both people are willing to look, to take responsibility for their own shadows, something sacred happens. Love becomes less about avoiding pain and more about transforming it together. The next time you feel triggered, take a breath before reacting. Ask yourself, is this about now or is this about before? Sometimes that single question can change the course of a conversation, maybe even the course of a relationship. Because most of the time, it's not about the forgotten text or the argument or the silence. It's about the child inside you who's still waiting to be heard, the teenager who felt unworthy, the adult who learned to guard their heart too tightly. When we stop projecting our wounds, we start freeing the people we love from the ghosts of our past. We start seeing them for who they really are. And in that clarity, something shifts. Compassion grows, patience deepens, love expands, because finally we're no longer fighting the people in front of us. We're healing the people we used to be. That's what love is meant to do. Not to erase our wounds, but to help us understand them. To remind us that the pain isn't the enemy, it's the map back to ourselves. And when we learn to follow it, when we stop projecting and start owning what's ours, we don't just become better lovers. We become freer humans, capable of giving and receiving the kind of love that doesn't just comfort, it transforms. Sometimes it feels like love is this wild, unpredictable force that sweeps through your life, lighting everything up and then, just as suddenly, tearing everything apart. It's almost like love arrives as both the gift and the test. It gives you something beautiful to hold, and then it asks, are you strong enough to hold it when it changes, when it hurts? And that's where the lesson lives. Because love, at its deepest level, doesn't just comfort us, it teaches us. And most of the time, those lessons come wrapped in pain. No one ever really warns you about that. When we're young, we think love will fix everything. We grow up believing in the fairy tale version, where love solves loneliness, where it fills the cracks, where it makes sense of everything. But real love doesn't always feel like that. It's messy, it's hard, it forces you to confront parts of yourself you didn't even know existed. And sometimes, it breaks your heart in order to open it. When you love deeply, you open yourself to transformation. That's the deal. You can't have the beauty of love without the risk of pain, because pain is the shadow of connection. The deeper the love, the deeper the lesson, and the deeper the potential for heartbreak. But that heartbreak isn't punishment, it's an invitation. It's life showing you where you still have something to learn. Think about the times you've loved someone so much it scared you. You become vulnerable. Every emotion feels amplified. Every small moment matters. But when that love changes, when it fades or falls apart, it feels like losing a part of yourself. That ache, that hollow quiet, it's unbearable at first. But eventually, if you stay with it, you realize the pain isn't empty. It's full of truth. It's teaching you something about yourself, about life, about the nature of love itself. Maybe love teaches through pain because nothing else gets our attention quite the same way. You don't grow when everything's comfortable. You grow when you're stretched, when your heart breaks open, and you're forced to rebuild it differently. Pain clears out the illusions, the fantasies, the conditions we attach to love. It strips everything down until all that's left is something raw and real. Someone leaves you or betrays you or simply can't love you the way you hoped they would. It's easy to feel like love failed, but love never fails. People fail, expectations fail, circumstances fail. Love itself is still there, quietly doing its work, even in the pain. Because love doesn't always stay in the form we want it to. Sometimes its purpose was never to last forever. Sometimes it came to teach you something essential, what you deserve, what you need, what you were capable of surviving. There's this strange alchemy that happens when love hurts. Pain softens you if you let it. It humbles you. It forces empathy into places that were once closed. It teaches you how to forgive, how to release, how to love again without bitterness. The irony is the people who've hurt you the most often end up being your greatest teachers, not because they were kind, but because they showed you where your boundaries are. They showed you what you will and won't accept. They showed you the difference between attachment and true connection. It teaches patience. It teaches resilience. It teaches that not everyone who enters your life is meant to stay, but every person who crosses your path leaves something behind. Sometimes what they leave hurts, sometimes it heals, but both are valuable. And maybe that's the hardest part to accept, that love isn't always gentle. It's not always soft hands and warm embraces. Sometimes love shows up as a mirror, reflecting your fears, your insecurities, the places where you still need to grow. You might think you're angry at the other person, but what you're really angry at is the way they made you see yourself, the way they touched the parts of you that needed healing. That's love too, the kind that doesn't feel good but makes you better. There's a story I heard once. Two people fall in love. They think they've found their forever, and for a while they have, but as time goes on, one begins to change, to outgrow the life they built. The other doesn't understand. They hold on tighter, trying to keep things the way they were. Eventually it breaks, and both are left shattered. Years later, after the tears, after the silence, after the anger fades, they each realize that the love they shared pushed them toward who they were meant to become. The pain of losing each other was the very thing that forced them to grow. That's the quiet truth of love. It's not always about keeping something. Sometimes it's about learning something. Love comes into your life like a storm, clears away what's false, and leaves you with clarity. It hurts, but it cleanses. Pain teaches gratitude too. When you've had your heart broken, you learn to value the small things differently. The laughter of a friend, a morning without regret, the warmth of being understood. You stop taking love for granted. You stop assuming it's owed to you. Pain gives you perspective. It teaches you that love isn't something you can possess. It's something you experience. It's something you give. You learn through pain that real love isn't about ownership. It's not about control. It's not even about always being together. It's about showing up with honesty. It's about being brave enough to open your heart, even when you know it might break. Because love without risk isn't love, it's safety. And safety doesn't change you. When you let yourself love after being hurt, that's strength. That's evolution. It means you've learned that the pain of love is not a reason to close off. It's a reason to open up with more wisdom. Every scar on your heart becomes a reminder that you lived, that you felt, that you didn't let fear win. And maybe that's the greatest lesson love teaches through pain, that you can't lose by loving. Even if it ends, even if it hurts, you still gain something no one can take away. You gain depth, compassion, understanding. You learn to see others not just for who they are, but for what they've endured. You start recognizing that everyone carries their own wounds, their own stories, their own lessons from love and loss. Sometimes we think the goal of love is happiness, but maybe it's not. Maybe the goal is growth. Happiness is beautiful, but it's temporary. Growth lasts. Love teaches through joy, yes, but the lessons that stay with us, the ones that transform us, they come through pain. Because pain has a way of stripping away everything that isn't true. It leaves only what's real. There's a certain grace in that, a kind of quiet wisdom that comes when you've loved and lost and survived. You stop fearing the hurt. You start to understand it. You start to see it as part of the journey, not a detour, but the road itself. You realize that love doesn't promise to spare you pain. It promises to give your pain meaning. So when love hurts, when it tears through you, don't run from it. Let it teach you. Let it refine you. Let it make you softer, wiser, more open. Because every time your heart breaks, it doesn't just fall apart, it expands. It makes room for more understanding, more kindness, more truth. That's the lesson. Love teaches through pain because pain is the proof that love mattered. It's the evidence that you were brave enough to feel something real. And if you can carry that with you, if you can walk through the ache without closing your heart, then love hasn't defeated you. It's completed you. It's made you more human, more whole, and somehow more alive than ever before. You know, it's easy to love when everything is beautiful, when life is smooth, when people treat you right, when your heart hasn't been cracked open. But the real test of love, the real test of your spirit, comes when you've been hurt. When someone has betrayed you, disappointed you, walked away without explanation. That's when the world asks you, what will you do with your pain? Will you hold it close, let it harden, let it turn into bitterness? Or will you find the courage to choose compassion instead? Bitterness feels safe. It feels like armor. When you've been hurt, anger gives you something to hold on to. It says, they don't deserve my forgiveness. It whispers, if I let this go, it means what they did was okay. So you cling to the anger because it feels powerful. But bitterness is a quiet poison. It doesn't protect you, it imprisons you. It turns your heart into a place where nothing new can grow. And the person you end up hurting the most isn't the one who broke you, it's you. Compassion is different. Compassion doesn't mean forgetting or excusing. It doesn't mean letting someone hurt you again. It means choosing to see the bigger picture. It means saying, I understand you're human, you failed, and maybe in some way I failed too. It's about freeing yourself from the grip of pain by refusing to carry hate any longer. Because hate is heavy. It slows you down. It keeps you stuck in the moment that broke you, long after life has moved on. I think we all reach that crossroads at some point, the place where we can keep replaying what happened, or we can begin to release it. Healing begins the moment you decide to stop rewriting the past in your head and start writing a new story for your heart. That moment when you whisper to yourself, I can't change what happened, but I can choose how I live with it. That's where compassion begins. When you choose compassion, you don't erase the pain, you transform it. You take something that was meant to destroy you and turn it into something that strengthens you. You start to see that maybe the person who hurt you was also hurting. Maybe they were lost, confused, broken in ways you'll never understand. That doesn't justify what they did, but it helps you realize that pain travels through people until someone is brave enough to stop it. And choosing compassion means being that person, the one who breaks the cycle. It's not easy. Sometimes compassion feels impossible, but the truth is, forgiveness isn't something that happens all at once. It's something you practice. 1,000 small choices to let go. Every day, every hour, sometimes every minute. You'll remember what happened, and the bitterness will knock again, and you'll have to say, no, not today. I've carried this long enough. And slowly the grip of anger loosens. Slowly you start to breathe again. The moment you stop wishing the past were different is the moment you start to heal. Compassion opens that door. It lets the light back in. You begin to notice beauty again, a conversation with a friend, a sunset, laughter that feels real. You start to see that your story isn't defined by the person who hurt you, but by the way you choose to rise from it. Compassion doesn't make you weak. It makes you free. It takes strength to look at pain and say, you don't get to own me. It takes courage to love again after being broken. And that's the kind of strength the world needs more of. Not the strength that fights back, but the strength that lets go. Because at the end of the day, the heart doesn't heal by holding tighter to what hurt it. It heals when you open your hands, when you stop trying to get even and start trying to get well. Healing comes when you choose compassion over bitterness. It's the quiet decision that says, I'm done carrying this pain. And when you make that choice, something incredible happens. Peace finds its way back in. The kind of peace that doesn't depend on anyone else. The kind that comes from knowing that no matter what they took from you, they can't take away your ability to love. So why does the one you love the most hurt you the deepest? Because Love isn't a shield, it's exposure. It's standing naked in front of another soul and saying, "This is me, all of me." And sometimes that's too much for either heart to handle. But here's the beautiful part. Even when love breaks you, it also rebuilds you, wiser, softer, stronger. So don't run from the pain. Let it teach you. Let it shape you. And when you're ready, love again. Because the only thing greater than the hurt of love is the healing it brings when you don't give up on it.